Welcome to episode 6 of Elephant Diaries. My name is Siana Bangura and I'm a writer, blogger and poet from London. And on May 21st, my debut collection of poetry called Elephant is coming out. In episodes 1 to 5 of Elephant Diaries, we've had a look at what you can expect from the first 5 sections of the book. And in episode 6, I'm going to be walking you through the main theme of this section, which is womanhood. A simple woman who wanted the simple things in life. Satisfied, happy, never understanding what we were all chasing. Cooking and cleaning and proud of her home. Proud to serve her husband and serve the good Lord. Proud of her children. One's a plumber. The other went to uni to study something or other. And her daughter had a baby recently, and she sings to baby quietly, and is taken to grandma duties like a duck takes to water, humming hymns sweetly, baking cakes for Pastor Michael, avoiding the news, it's always bad. Takes cruises with her husband once every 3 years, got to watch the pennies too. But there is love and there is love, moving and existing in abundance, spending Sundays tending to the flowers in the garden in the afternoon. They are blooming nicely. And my dear, happiness looks good on you. It always has, and it always will. So that poem is called She, and it's the first poem in section 6 of Elephant. And it's just about a really ordinary lady who has a very simple, nice life and is very satisfied with that, and almost, I think that's refreshing. I think a lot of us are chasing the big life or chasing these grand things, or wanting to change the world and doing all these kind of, really big things. And for some people, they just want to exist. They just want to have a nice family life. They want the simple things. For them, the ordinary is extraordinary. And I think that's really beautiful, actually. I got the inspiration for this little poem after a conversation with my mum a long time ago. She'd come from work recently and she'd been telling me about just her day really and the women she works with. And I imagined, a kind of older English lady just kind of telling my mum about her sons and how she's recently become a grandma and she's very proud of that and it's a really big thing for her, and how she enjoys taking cruises with her husband, who she's been with for many, many, many years. And just kind of going to church and making sure everyone's happy, looking after everybody, and finding fulfillment in that. And I think, it was just kind of a reminder that simple things in life can be very beautiful. Pausing, slowing down, and looking at the flowers in your garden sometimes, enjoying your family, enjoying your surroundings, and not thirsting for what could be and what's not in your hand, what's out there, and just kind of really appreciating what you do have in your hands, in your home. In your kind of circle. I think my favourite line of this poem is definitely towards the end, just the, happiness looks good on you. It always has and it always will. I think ultimately we're all really just searching for happiness and searching for a way to feel satisfied and searching for love and searching for comfort and searching for safety. And I think the woman is in this poem, I think she has all those things. I bit off my shackles and my chains with my bare teeth, and then bathed under the burning sun. She nurtured me, glorious affinity. She kissed my black skin and healed my wounds, and the ocean also came to my rescue, taking pity on me, after watching me drift at sea, helpless, withered and lost for too many years. At one point, I met God, and I can confirm that God is a black woman, and her skin is rich, dark with melanin, infused with cocoa and regal like our joint ancestry. She blew life back into me, into my inches and my crevices, turned the dust into specks of power, ignited the fire in my stomach and straightened my back, gave me another chance to walk in the light. And with healed wounds and no more scars, she confirmed that Jesus was not white, and that everything I have been taught is a lie. She told me to exist in honour with pride, then armed with a knife, a shovel, a fork and spirit, she told me to go forth and carve my own space. And she said that anger is okay. It is the difference between speech and action. It is my absolute right to speak about my pain, to celebrate my triumphs, to write myself and my sisters back into the history books. So that is kind of the middle section of the second poem in section 6. This poem is called Woman, Ain't I? And that is, the title alone is a reference to Sojourner Truth's very famous, or rather infamous, speech, Ain't I a Woman? And also kind of paying homage to Book by Bell Hooks and just the general womanist, black feminist movement and that history as well. I wrote this poem. It was actually commissioned by my friends at the Ain't I Woman Collective. They launched a while back now, and this was a poem that I performed at their launch in front of a whole room of women, and it was amazing. It was really great. I got them to, there's actually a sort of call and response section later on, and I got them to do that, and that was really awesome. Just that section that I kind of shared with you there, I think it's kind of summarising really all that I'm about, all the things I talk about, taking up space, being proud of your black womanhood, being angry and knowing that being angry is okay, and just really decolonising and challenging all of the kind of white supremacist bullshit we've been taught for such a long time. And this poem is actually meant to be very empowering. It's meant to be very much about the kind of strength of black women. And I know actually I've been thinking a lot lately about how strength and black women always going together can actually be very detrimental to us, particularly to our mental health. But all the same, strength is no bad thing. The bad thing is when you are not allowed to be the opposite, to sometimes be weak, if you want to call it weak, sometimes bend, sometimes break, but as long as you come back again. I think that's really important. And this person here, I guess the character in this particular piece, has been lost at sea for a very long time. And I think a lot of us have been lost at sea for a long time, believing that, you know, Jesus was a white man, for example, when he was probably more so my colour, let's face it. Believing things that we've been taught at school for a very long time, in a curriculum that's very, very white, and believing the representations of us, the limited representations of us, and taking that to be our truth, when really there's so much more to it. There is a history we've not been taught and we are now trying to find, and just kind of this sense of pride that a lot of us maybe didn't get to grow up with because we were navigating very hostile grounds and hostile spaces and digesting and internalizing misogyny, racism, sexism, misogynoir, and things like that. And this poem is very much about overcoming and reaching the point where you understand and revel in the fact that you are not only black but also woman, and not only woman but also black, and very much kind of embracing that identity and finding strength in it, and finding strength in your sisters, and looking at them and knowing that when you look at them, you see yourself, you see a kind of reflection of a type of God, to be quite honest. I'm not religious at all, but I really do believe in the power of people and the power of representation, the power of what we see when we look in the mirror. And this poem is very much just kind of about all of that. And just as Sojourner demanded in her truth, when they tried to humiliate her and question her womanhood and right to be a woman almighty, we declare fearlessly and unapologetically, loudly and strongly, we are defiant finally. Ain't I a woman? 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 I am a woman. The penultimate poem in this section is called Grandma. And indeed it is about my grandma, and also the idea of a grandparent, of a grandma. I actually only have one living grandparent left, and she actually lives in Sierra Leone. She's my mum's mum. And yeah, I wrote this poem just because, I guess, yeah, just kind of imagining what made my grandma become this person that she is today, someone who's quite distant, and kind of really in her own world, shall we say. I think she's someone who has been through a lot, and I think that she has a story to tell, and I think a lot of her story is probably something I will never know. I think it's something that will be taken to her grave, and I think that's the way with a lot of our grandparents. with a lot of black women, with a lot of our elders. They keep a lot of things, they've seen a lot of things, they keep a lot in their heart, and they don't really have the kind of, I guess, the structures around to be able to explore those feelings. They don't really have the time, I suppose. And I think the mentality as well is that if you talk about your emotions too much or philosophize too much about all the things and your inner workings, I don't know, that kind of makes you weak, perhaps. So this poem is actually very much just kind of exploring that mother-daughter relationship as well, and kind of comparing that mother-daughter relationship that my mum has with her mum and kind of the one that I have with my mum. And I think there's a lot of, there's a strong sense of kind of loss, a strong sense of distance, and a sense of longing as well. And I think really this poem is just kind of about all those different things. And also, you know, womanhood is a complex thing, it's a complicated thing, and I didn't shy away from kind of putting it out there that there are some mothers generally who aren't your stereotypical mothers. There are some women who don't want to have children, and then there are some women who don't have children and they have them anyway because nature does its thing, regardless of whatever they do to try and make sure they don't have children. And I think we have this idea that women automatically are maternal and nurturing and comforting and made to be parents. And, you know, I think a lot of women resent that idea, because when you do say you don't want children, it's kind of, even today, looked upon in horror. How could you not want a child? That's what you're made for, kind of thing, which is ridiculous, to be honest, in 2016. But yeah, it's just kind of putting the darker side out there as well, and saying that there are some mothers who don't put their children first. There are some mothers who are twisted. There are some mothers who have got a lot of stuff inside, a lot of pain that they're carrying, and they maybe will never be able to verbalize or vocalize. And actually, it's really just kind of looking at that and being really honest about it. Just, we as humans are very complicated and complex creatures with lots of different sides to our characters. Some mothers are bitter and twisted. They were not taught how to love, and so how could they ever love anyone? How could they begin to love themselves? Some mothers are selfish. They put themselves first and their children second or third. Some mothers are lost, trudging through mazes and tired, often distraught and distant, growing further removed from the beat of their hearts, accepting the fact their children will grow to hate them, or at least begrudge them, for being awful mothers. Some mothers are guilty, the type of guilt that keeps them up late at night and plays on their mind, paralysing them into a stupor of sorry, a web of apologies. Yeah, that section is just a section of this poem, just really kind of talking about those mothers who are struggling to love themselves, and then they're forced to have to love a human being that they've brought into the world. You know, sometimes we ask so much of people, they've got their own kind of personal battles going on, and they're trying to slay their own personal demons. And actually, a lot of people don't even successfully do it, but they find themselves in positions where they have to kind of put that battle aside and put themselves on the shelf and kind of concentrate on looking after children, and when they haven't dealt with their own kind of personal issues. And I think, you know, also, I guess I'm looking at kind of generational trauma as well, because I think that is a very real thing. I think that sometimes we do pass on the trauma and the baggage that we have onto our children. And I think just in black families, I think there's a lot of kind of baggage and emotional kind of trauma there that isn't really dealt with, and we all just kind of carry on as if there's nothing wrong. And Grandma is actually just a really kind of honest poem about all those things, and really the kind of complicated nature of being a woman, of being a black woman, of being my grandma. Continent, citizen, immigrant, landmass. She is the most raped woman on the planet. She has been beaten almost to death for hundreds of years. She has lost more children than is reported, than any other mother. Her orphans are spread across the globe, being mistreated by evil stepmothers and molested, fingered, handled by evil stepfathers. She has been slandered. Now she is everybody's favourite playground. All men lie about her. Sometimes her own blood rejects her. Apparently, there is no hope for her. She is not a continent, not a place of 54 states and an estimated 2,000 languages, countless numbers of religions, 1.1 billion people. She is the unreported world. God chose to favour her, which then did unfavour her, and undo her, that did curse her. Her womb is toxic, inferior, hated, blasted. 1 minute, they have given up on her. Hopeless, they call her. The next, she is bright and full of promise, on the rise. They speak about her, for her, not with her or to her. What can she do for us? How can we profit off her skin? Understandably now, she has a migraine. Sick and tired of these terrorists. She has always been a fighter though. Do you know what she has been through? Her skin is tough, her heart is large, and her love is endless. You see, women are stronger than you think. So that poem is called Frontier. And I have essentially turned the continent of Africa into a woman, into a black woman, to be quite honest. And, you know, it's kind of convention really to talk about countries as female anyway, but I kind of want to take it a step further and just really think about really how Africa is portrayed to the world. Firstly, as this, rather than a gargantuan continent, a very diverse place, 54 states, 1.1 billion people, countless languages, countless religions, she's often presented as this homogenous wasteland, this homogenous place of war, this homogenous place of corruption, this homogenous place of death and woe and trouble. And as with every place in the world, there is woe, but there is also joy. And just the sections where I talk about kind of being described as hopeless, you know, the media has described her as hopeless so many times, and I think it was The Economist many years ago on their front page wrote that Africa is the hopeless continent, and then many years later then basically retracted the statement and called her, you know, the hopeful continent after much backlash. And I think it's interesting. When I was working for quite a major publication last year, I worked at the Africa desk, and we, you know, it was interesting. I went to a lot of conferences and lots of business meetings, and obviously it was mostly white men meeting with me and speaking on panels and speaking in front of all these big shots and big guns, talking about the future of Africa and what she can do for them, and never what they can do for Africa and Africans, or how they can facilitate something in which Africans can do for themselves and profit off their own resources. And, you know, it really ticked me off, to be honest, and I definitely made this known on many occasions. I was always the one raising my hand and saying, it's all very well that you're talking about what resources you're going to take and what money you're going to make from the continent, but what are you doing? What are you doing for Africa? What are you doing to make sure that all the things you create today make a change tomorrow for the right people and the right causes? And yeah, this poem is definitely, you know, about an abused woman, an abused continent, that has actually been rejected by her own people, her own children as well, you know, and I think that is definitely the case, you know. I think until very recently, a lot of people were kind of, I think, you know, in the school days, really ashamed to be African because of all the horrible things you saw on TV. Children with flies coming out of their eyeballs, constant poverty and dirty water, and it being something so embedded and entrenched in popular consciousness. You know, GIFs showing that same thing, music videos, Band-Aids and all that crap, basically, patronising and condescending a place that is so diverse, the mother of existence, the cradle of the earth. And I think, you know, I was just kind of reflecting on all of that, really. And just the idea that, you know, even though it's quite a dark poem, there is actually hope in there, because I think even though you have to be careful when you talk about Africa on the rise, because again, which part of Africa is on the rise, where is on the rise, but all the same, generally this idea that, you know, economically things are looking better with, you know, massive states like Nigeria, for example, doing a lot better and really kind of generating income. But even then, somewhere like Nigeria is doing really well, but it still has its problems, you know, same as Ghana, same as South Africa. But even though that narrative, you should be careful with it, there is still something to be said about, you know, us coming some way since maybe 25 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever, as a continent. And yeah, I think it's just kind of a reflection. I mean, you know, I am originally from Sierra Leone, I'm originally from Africa, but obviously I am part of the diaspora now. I think a lot of people my age really are kind of thinking about where is home, and, you know, how do we return to the motherland and make our countries better. And I think, you know, there's a big conversation we had about that whole returning home thing. I always say, you know, as much as I kind of do not feel like I'm home here in Britain, England is all that I know. I was born in Sierra Leone, but I came here when I was about 1 or 2, so I don't really have any memories of there at all. And I always say, if I were to go back, I'd very much be a bit of a fraud, to be honest. There's a lot of Western baggage I would be taking over there, and I think, you know, we have to always be mindful of that, just because we, the diasporan children, are not white, and we're not going to go over with a white saviour complex. We may well go over with a Western saviour complex. So I think this is lots of the kind of current narrative, the past narrative about Africa thrown in there, and I kind of just wanted to narrate that in a sort of creative way, and kind of say that this is a continent, but I think there's so many parallels of how she's been treated and how her children, her you know, daughters in particular, have been treated by wicked stepmothers and wicked stepfathers in these parts of the world. And with that, we've reached the end of episode 6 of Elephant Diaries. Wow. So I think by now, you're probably getting a better idea of what you can expect from the collection. In this section, we've really taken a look at womanhood in all its complexity, the trials and tribulations, the joy, the pain, the anxiety, and we've kind of met, shall we say, a bunch of different women who are actually being used as metaphors through which I can explore certain issues, basically. So, look out for the next episode, it's not far away, and make sure you use the hashtag this is elephant, hashtag countdown to elephant, and just kind of keep up with the journey on social media and on my website and things like that. Elephant is almost here and I'm very excited. But for now, I'll see you next episode.